So I brought a couple of videos because I wanted to show to you what is happening in the occupied area before I speak about the book. But perhaps what I should do tonight is to start by telling you the following. We all know in America, President Trump, some people love and some people hate. But there is one thing that we can all agree on. When he speaks, he makes provocative comments and he manages to insult people around the world. So, one of the statements he made before his election was the Mexican War. Okay? Now, in order for you to understand what happened to Cyprus, I would like you to imagine that now the army of Mexico tomorrow invades the United States. And they say, President Trump, with his words, threatens our minorities living in the United States, and we're coming over to protect them. So, by the way, no need for the NATO alliance to help, because all we're going to do is to collect all the Mexicans and put them into one place, so if things go wrong, we can take all the Mexicans out of the country. And the whole world is watching and believing, and the Mexicans are there. And the Mexican army moves in, state by state, conquers 40% of the United States, pushes us out, the indigenous people, creates ethnic cleansing, and then imports Mexicans, before the wall is built, who live in our houses. Ah, by the way, Los Angeles will not be occupied, because Los Angeles is for the rich, the elite, and we are going to keep that as a bargaining place. So you know what we'll do? We'll put a fence around it so we can bargain for a solution. And the world looks at the United States and says, we can't really intervene despite the human rights because it's an internal conflict. Why don't you two Mexicans and Americans go and talk together for 40 years to find a solution? Now, it is only when I use words like that that people understand what happened to Little Cyprus. But that is really what happened to my country. Now, what do you do when you are a 14-year-old girl who goes to bed, dreams to study, and all of what teenagers dream, lives near the sea with her siblings, we were 4 children, and goes to bed one day and wakes up in the midst of the war with the Turkish planes dropping napalm bombs on us. Yes, napalm bombs, because those days you didn't have the Organization for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons. And the ones who should have cared, they turned their heads. So at that age, you feel scared, you feel abandoned, it's hard to trust people after that. And then you can do 2 things. You can move on as a victim in life and say, why me? Live in shame because you become a refugee. Or you can say, never again. I'm going to stand up and survive. Well, that's what I did. And I'll share with you some of my life and how the combating art trafficking has helped me. But I think, because we don't have the videos, I would like to read the first page of my book. I'm looking for my glasses here first. Because, you know, somebody from Cyprus said to me, and it wasn't the first time, that I should go into politics. So I said to them, you know, you are looking to the most ambitious woman in the world. if I become a politician, even if you make me president, some of you will love me for 5 years. And because I want you to love me forever, I will never get into politics. But I will do the following. And because this person who came, he was sent by one of the parties, I said to him, I will write to you a poem which is inspired by Kazantzakis to me. And then please convey my exact words to those who sent you to me. And I think this poem just sums up who I am and the troubles I get myself into. I fear nothing, as I expect nothing. I'm a free woman, and free I shall remain, as that is my strength. Those who place their personal interests above justice and human rights should fear me, as those I shall expose. So, I was born in Famagusta, a city where in the 60s was the Mediterranean refuge for the Hollywood stars. Elizabeth Taylor came many times. And since 1974, when the invasion took place, this little paradise, which had the name Amohostos, buried in the sand, is a ghost city. Now, when I say ghost city, it's actually difficult to imagine, but we had to run away for our life as the Turks were coming into our city. And we left our cups on the table, we left our birds and rabbits in the cages, and it's now 40 plus years later, nobody lives in there. There are trees that are growing in the streets, in the houses, and nobody's talking about it. United Nations passed many resolutions that the Turks should leave, but nothing has happened. So what do you do when you are a young woman or a child? You end up in another city in your own country as a second-class citizen, because refugees, we are second-class citizens. Look at the world today. Who is fighting the Syrian war for the Syrians? Everybody's fighting for themselves. Who is really looking at the Syrians to empower them, the refugees, to go back home? At least in Europe, we are all fighting to dish them to our neighbors so that they are not an economic burden. Because we all look at our economic interests and we do not understand that a refugee is a person who did not choose to leave home. So a refugee always wants to go back home. And I am one of those. I left Cyprus after the high school to study in the UK, nothing to do with icons, nothing to do with what I do today. I studied computer science, and then I thought going to Holland would be for a year or two until Famagusta opens. Well, I'm still waiting because Famagusta did not open. But the Netherlands embraced me. It is a difficult country, Holland, but it is a civilized country and offered me opportunities more than my own country could. So I set up my own company. But I understood that very, very little was known about Cyprus. So I became an activist I think I was 22, and I started writing articles, going to politicians to tell them my story. And I found some wonderful Dutch people, a journalist who became like a second father to me, he's dead now, that put me in his arms and he said, you know, kid, we are not all born to hate you. We just don't know your story. So I'm going to take you around to meet other people and tell the politicians what you do. And one led to the other, and at the young age of 27, I was made honorary consul. What does that mean? That means you're the first point of contact for Greek and Turkish Cypriots coming for passport renewals, any problems with their business, cultural, scientific. But when there's no an embassy, you are the A and the Z representative of that country. Now, being young and green has its positives and its negatives. But in my case, I think I was honorary vice consul for a month when I was targeted by art traffickers. They found me. I didn't look for them. They came to use me to sell via me mosaics which once were decorating the churches of my country, 5th to 6th century, which were literally drilled out of the wall, because you have to be absolutely barbaric to go into a church, stick a number on the head of an apostle or a saint from a passage of the Bible, because this is what these frescoes and mosaics represent, and then to go and negotiate that head in a luxurious hotel abroad. This is how art trafficking happens. Each apostle and saint has a number, and that number is negotiating with a glass of champagne. And the greedy collectors who believe that money can buy them all, or ignorant people who have no understanding of the impact that such looting has to an effective community, they pay, and they have that antiquity for their own pleasure in their homes. So when I was confronted with this reality at a time where we had no internet, and the art trafficker was telling me, I can buy everything from the north and sell it to the south. I'm going to be the Robin Hood of Cyprus. Just something broke in me, you know? And it's very difficult to understand. As I'm becoming older, I understand what that did to me at the time. But at the time I thought, my God, you took my youth. You took my family away from me. It wasn't easy for me as a 17-year-old kid, 17 and a half, to work in restaurants and as a model to pay for my tuition to study. It was hard work. And now, all I've got is those memories back home. I have something to hold on. I can tell people I'm from Famagusta. And what are the Turks doing? They changed the name of my city. They changed the names of every city in the occupied area. Now, they're erasing every evidence, piece of evidence that we ever lived there. I actually, you might find me naive, but I felt very threatened. I thought, people are going to think I'm lying when I say I'm from Famagusta, because that won't even exist. Perhaps the fact that I was living in Holland, whereby I was different amongst different, made me hold on to those memories more, or I was more in search of my identity, trying to integrate. Whatever it did, it triggered something in me, and I thought, I shall stop them. So I brought Interpol to these art traffickers. So 2 policemen from Cyprus came, and you know, you would imagine that the Dutch police would put the art traffickers down and give them what for. Instead, we were asked, the consul and the Cyprus police, to go to his private quarters in a hotel room where he denied everything. And then he asked the policeman to leave the room, and he looked at me and he said, now, I really thought you were smarter than this girl. If you want your antiquities, you have to learn to work with me. So, tell your dogs to come back. So the police came back, and he said to them, the consul is confused. I never told her I knew where these antiquities are. someone called me and told me he was selling them. What's his name? I can't remember. So, I'm telling you this because from that moment onwards, this Dutch art dealer, Michel van Rijn, really provoked me. And I thought, I'm going to put you behind bars. And I spent many years trying to catch him, to put him behind bars. And he spent many years trying to compromise me, to find something to blackmail me, because that's how these people work. So when he couldn't get my attention, then he would go, for example, to a collector and say, you know, that icon you bought from me those days is actually looted. The consul is looking for them. So if you don't give me $25,000, I'm going to go and tell her you have it. But you sold it to me, da, 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 da. And then the traffickers would say, is my name on the paperwork? Because they don't put their name on the paperwork. They sell from one to the other, so that they can get a clean title. So they would blackmail and extract money from people. And eventually, I have developed a network of wonderful human beings, journalists, insurance people, volunteers, who have helped me track down a number of these antiquities. But my major source of information was this art dealer, controversial trafficker, because he would give me just a little bit to keep me on the hook, but not enough for me to be able to go after the antiquity. So I began acting like a sponge, writing everything he told me every time, and then the puzzle would come together with the bits of information he's telling me. For example, he'll tell me one time that, you know, this icon I sold to a cardiologist in The Hague, but then he won't give me the name. And another time, he'll tell me, you know, that the son of the cardiologist who had that icon is this and that. And then you have to put them together to think, so that's the doctor. But still, I discovered that repatriating antiquities is not an easy subject. You have legal, you have international treaties which are signed and not ratified. You have civil code that is statute barred. You have statutes of limitation. And you have different laws in different parts of Europe even. They're not harmonized. So starting a court case is very long, expensive. In the meantime, the antiquities are not looked after. They are stored somewhere away from the public eye. And the outcome of the court case is not certain. But the former Archbishop of Cyprus, Chrysostomos I, he trusted me blindly and gave me access to the best lawyers in the world. And although my time, and I was honorary representative of him too, he did empower me by giving me a power of attorney to take decisions for repatriation of any looted religious antiquity worldwide. I could get, and providing me with lawyers, I would get the spectrum of the worst scenario and the best scenario and decide whether I should start a civil case, criminal case, or convince the people that they should give it back to me. Now, I like to stop on the last one and tell you that with the majority of my repatriations, 95% people gave them to me. And I feel so hopeful to humanity because I believe that we are not born bad. It just things happen on the way. But if we approach each other with the right angle and the right story, I have met some wonderful human beings around the world who spend thousands of dollars buying looted antiquities. But when they understood what it means to us, refugees or immigrants, or to the communities that they came from, they voluntarily gave it to me. Some wished to be anonymous, and some wanted their name known. And then where do you take these antiquities? They all went to Nicosia. in a museum. If you ask my soul, I would have loved to take them to the occupied area and collect money around the world and restore each and every church, restore each and every graveyard. Because if you cannot tolerate my dead, how am I going to trust you to coexist with you in times of peace? But, you know, until there is a solution in Cyprus, taking them back to the occupied area is not a solution. So my destiny led me from one country to another to run and chase to bring icons. I ended up in Japan, in Germany, in the United States, in Indianapolis, with 4 frescoes from the Kanakaria Church, unique worldwide, and the money for legal cases were mounting. So I said to the Archbishop, this is not going anywhere. We've got thousands, we've got about 500 churches in the occupied part of Cyprus. 3 are Armenian, also looted. So what do? I think we have to turn the table on the dealers. We have to do something spectacular. So we agreed that I would spare one to catch the others. So I go back to the Dutch art dealer and I make a pact with him. If he would work with me to frame all the dealers and we could catch them on their act, I would make sure my government will not prosecute him. Well, he wasn't impressed with my government not prosecuting him because he is so confident that we can never catch him anyway. But he thought, I got her where I want her. Now if I can get her to give me some money and I can prove I can give things back to her, then I can get money from the Cypriots to buy back what I sold to the people. So neither of us trusted each other. So we made a deal for a limited amount of money. He would buy some antiquities from this Turk, Aydin Dikman in Munich, so that I can convince Cyprus that he's going to deliver because he could have cheated me, sold me fakes, and then confiscate this antiquity, this money at the second stage. And this is exactly what we did. We made a pact. He gave me a number of antiquities. He came in the back of the car with luggages of pieces from our churches, and I could not believe how anyone can treat anybody's faith this way. And he delivered them to me, and the Archbishop and me had the Attorney General in Cyprus lined up and Interpol. So when he came and said, I need more money because there's more and more to buy for you, I said to him, I know where you're buying from, because he filmed the transaction to prove to me that he didn't have the arts, and he sold it to Channel 4 to make money. So I said, you've got 24 hours, I'm going to confiscate that film, and I'm going to put you in jail because I'm buying from Aydin Dikman. So of course there was fight there, but I turned the table on them, and in October 1997, 75 police officers walked into 3 apartments in Munich simultaneously, whilst Aydin Dikman was negotiating with the partners of Orion, or his gypsies, and they busted the apartments and they found 5,500 looted antiquities worldwide. 350 believed to be from my country. It was Christmas for us, and I thought, finally, I'm going to bring them 350 antiquities without a court case. Isn't that wonderful? But it wasn't to be, because I didn't know that in Germany, when you have looted art in your possession and you can prove you had it for more than 10 years, it is not a criminal case when you sell it, but it's a civil case. Now, to spare you the details, it took 18 years for Cyprus to take a fraction of these antiquities back. We got about 200 of them back. And for lack of evidence, a lot of the antiquities went back legally to Dickmann, but actually they were confiscated by the German taxman because of illegal transactions he did and didn't pay taxes on it. So you can see how complex and how the interest of each one prevailed. I would have done it different, but that's what happened. So basically, after that, I looked at myself after the Munich case, and I thought, what's wrong with you, woman? You're a married woman, a mother of 3, a businesswoman. If I spent all my time in my business, I would have done very well, because I was one of the first people in the Netherlands who spoke about paperless office and brought the IT experts, but I couldn't, my heart and soul was elsewhere. So what is wrong with you? And I thought, deep down, I'm still petrified. I'm still that girl from Famagusta. And I'm so scared of them hurting me more. So I'm desperate to bring the antiquities back, because I can't go back home. That's what I'm doing. So if I want to do that, what mother do I want to be? Is it fair that I ask my son and my 2 daughters to fight my war? Is it fair that my children, who are born from a half-British, half-Cypriot father in Holland, going to Dutch schools, that they have to carry the burden of my past? Am I less patriot if I take my own war than give it to my children? And I thought, no, it's my war. My children must have their own choice to follow me or not. So I'm going to learn Turkish, and I'm going to study these buggers and see whether they sleep at night for what they did to us and to my mother. That I still have vividly, I see, kneeling down with the candle from Easter lit, praying to Apostolos Andreas and Virgin Mary whilst the Turks were bombing us, and we were cowered as for children in the bathtub for our safety. So I found a Turkish man in Holland, Erhan Günler, to teach me Turkish. I was very lucky. He's one of the most civilized, cultured Turkish people I've ever met, and one of the nicest human beings I came across. Smart, so he soon realized that I wasn't interested in his language. I wanted to understand what makes them tick, how do they think, what do they know. So we began walking every Sunday between 10 and 12, and we made an agreement that we will have a dialogue with respect, his perspective of history to mine. So this is how my walks of truth began. I was walking every Sunday with him, bringing more Greeks, he brought more Turks, and we started this dialogue. And to my surprise, a lot of the Turkish intellectuals, whether not just people with Armenian or Assyrian or Kurdish background, but even Muslim Turks, they did share my values. So I built a network of some really nice Turkish human beings who are helping me, and they think it is wrong, and they would be the first ones to stand next to me to restore Armenian or Greek churches in Turkey. So I went to Turkey, I went and found the Ecumenic Patriarch, Bartolomeo. I began reading and understanding what happened to your people. What happened to the Hellenes in the 1920s. And I feel such a parallelism. It is unfair to say that what happened to Cyprus is like Armenia in the sense that we didn't suffer genocide. And I hope the world soon will put at rest that chapter in your hearts, because you deserve, after all these years, that the minimum humanity owes to you is to acknowledge what happened. Germany is a much braver country than Turkey is. But I hope the rest of the world soon will force Turkey to stand up and say, yes, we do acknowledge our history and we did perform genocide. When that moment comes, it's not just compensation they fear, but bringing back your cultural heritage will be a lot easier, but I'll come to that in a minute. So whilst in Turkey, funny enough, in Constantinople, I looked around and the mystique of the Greeks missing from the bazaar, the Armenian traders missing, there is some sadness in Constantinople. And the Turkish elite see and they read and they understand. But I thought, I reflected, and I thought, this is the closest I've been to Famagusta since the war. When I look around at the mix of the monuments and all the civilizations blending together, and I thought, now I understand why I was bringing those antiquities back. What I'm doing, that was my walk of truth, in search of who am I, and what is dear to me. So I looked at Erhan and I said, you know, Erhan, I'm going to go back to Holland and I'm going to set up an NGO in the Netherlands and I'm going to call it Walk of Truth. Because politics divide us. Religion divides us. We seem to kill each other, even if the interpretation of the Quran is different to what we believe, or if we have a different faith. But monuments, they live longer than one human life. And if we could discuss our different perspectives of history and religion using the monuments, perhaps we can have a dialogue with respect. So I set up the NGO and looked around what is missing, because there are many actors in the field. And I thought, what is missing? There's nobody that engages the public, that acknowledges the value that cultural heritage has to ordinary citizens. There's nobody who is looking how dear this cultural heritage is to refugees, to immigrants, to affected communities. If it means so much to me, surely I'm not unique, so it must mean to others. So Walk of Truth focuses on engaging the public to protect cultural heritage by watching the trade and giving tips about what is about to be sold, which looks dodgy. And then a network of volunteer experts, lawyers, we get together and we help to bring that antiquity back. My 35 years of voluntary contribution, I digitized, I thought I had some water here, and it is available to be used as lessons learned for Syrians, Armenians, and people worldwide. I would love to do a lot more for you. I would love our NGO to help you repatriate and restore Armenian monuments worldwide. I would like to help you, your lawyers, to understand the quickest way to repatriate looted antiquities. And all of this I do because until I die, and I want to die standing up, I want to go home. I cannot accept a woman like me who has been to Mongolia, who has been to China, who has been to Africa. I can stand in front of that line, look at my home, and I cannot digest that if I do one step to go home, Erdogan's thugs can shoot me. I will not accept this. So I'm hoping in the fall, when this book, the soft cover, will come, I will announce the date to go back home, because originally it was planned for August this year, but I think the best for our walk, it will be to be next year and around Easter. Mark said, my name is Tasoula. There is no such a name. My name is Anastasia. Resurrection. I was born in February 1959 when my country was told they may be independent. Everybody in the village were forcing my parents to call me Eleftheria, freedom, but my parents called me Anastasia to honor my grandmother. And I wish to plan this walk on Easter, Orthodox Easter, where the icons are celebrated and venerated by all us Christians, and walk silently back home, because it is resurrection that I'm asking of my people, of your people, and every refugee worldwide should have the right to go home. So with these words, I shall leave you, and I hope if any one of you wants to work with us, we will. I will only read you a couple of pages from the book so you get the essence of what this book is all about, because the theme is Easter, because I couldn't find a better way to explain to the reader the role of the icons than showing some of those rituals and how we use icons to express our religious freedoms. So selling our sacred heritage is restricting us from our religious freedoms. So if there are any smart human rights lawyers in this room, I would love to discuss with you how we, whether Greeks or Armenians, can fight on another level for our human rights and cultural heritage. Religious freedoms is the way to put our cause on today's agenda. In a cafe, a few minutes walk from Virus' shop, the two men sit drinking whiskey. The Cypriot government is going to pay me a huge amount of money to buy back their stolen artifacts, says Furain. Really? I'm impressed. How in the world did you manage to strike that deal? One crucial ingredient is missing that you might be able to help me with. Please, go on, Virus says. It's my understanding that you have a good working relationship with Aydin Dikmen. What's your interest in Aydin? Virus asks. He was a major supplier of artifacts coming out of Cyprus after the 1974 war, with a free pass in and out of the occupied area, which holds hundreds of ancient churches. Sounds like a Byzantine gold mine. You have no idea, says Furain. Why come to me, says Virus. Dikmen and I had a falling out over a client I introduced to him from America. Are you familiar with Peg Goldberg and the Kanakaria case? I vaguely recall reading something about it in the papers, says Virus. Dikmen and I sold Goldberg 4 rare mosaics considered to be among the oldest Byzantine Christian antiquities, depicting Archangel, the upper part of Christ child, and the apostles Matthew and James. What period? Asks Virus. 6th century mosaics originating from the Kanakaria church, revered by the collectors and worshipped by the Orthodox. They survived the iconoclasts. So, what happened? Goldberg attempted to flip the mosaics to the Getty Museum for millions in profits and got busted. The trial between her and the Church of Cyprus became a huge headache for Dikmen, and he holds me responsible. What do you propose? Asks Virus. If you know Dikmen, you know his temperament. He will take his anger for me to the grave. So, you are not on speaking terms? Virus asks. All you have to do is act as my conduit. If you purchase the artifacts for me, Dickman will never know that I'm involved. It's that simple. We'll get rich and the Cypriots will have their artifact back. Virus asks, what kind of fee are you talking about? Von Rijn ignores the question as they continue sizing each other up. Virus, we'll do this deal, and if everything runs smoothly, we'll go to the next phase. Virus is elated. What could be better than a no-risk, quick cash deal and access to clients with deep, deep pockets? I appreciate the opportunity, and please, don't take this the wrong way, but I will have to think about it, says Virus. He's in the perfect shield for Von Rijn because of his long trusted relationship with Dickman. Of course, take all the time you need, Virus, but let me be straight with you. I feel like you are the guy. I'm willing to pay you good money. Let's not waste each other's time. You are replaceable, my good man. Don't you test me. Virus feels the bite. He wants to investigate Von Rijn beyond Christian's recommendations. Why would the Cypriot government be buying back their stolen artifacts? Virus would have to reach out to a Cypriot, someone connected to the government who could verify Von Rijn's story. The bartender pours another round. To all things old, says Virus, raising his glass. The next day, Virus reaches for the phone and dials a number in Cyprus. My friend, a quick word. There is a rumor that Michel Von Rijn is working with the Cypriots. The frown lines on Virus's face relax as his source in Cyprus reveals the inside information he seeks. I see, says Virus. Honorary consul in the Netherlands? A young woman? Tasoula Hadjitofi? Most interesting. So this is just a little taste of the language that they use and how they speak about the antiquities. And then there is another half a page which is during the sting in Munich, that I'm there, a woman like me, mother with 3 kids, and I am surrounded by armed bodyguards for weeks. And I'm not even allowed to phone my children or my husband in case we are tapped. So that evening, my bodyguard and I sit with our backs facing Von Rijn's table in the Hilton Hotel bar. Von Rijn, Virus, Rossi, and Laszlo are drinking heavily and talking about the lavish lunch they will have the following day at my expense. Von Rijn is being the big man, cursing up a storm as he shares his adventures. Remember, he says to them, Eftis expects to be given a list of preferred items and he will tell you what he wants to buy. Eftis wants mosaics and frescoes, icons, Bibles, crosses. He will buy anything originating from Cyprus, and he has very deep pockets. We are all going to make a bloody fortune because of this guy, says Von Rijn. The men raise their glasses to him and they all drink. Virus asks, Von Rijn, are you alone here in Germany or do you have a hen in your nest? Von Rijn is only just out of rehabilitation and he's right back to his old ways. Von Rijn makes a final toast with the boys. Let's nail this tomorrow. Cheers to Eftis, he says, as they raise their glasses one last time. Helmut escorts me to my hotel room. No need to worry, we have eyes on you. Sleep well. Once inside my room, I wonder if having eyes on you means that the police have cameras in my room. I step into the shower and push the curtain closed to ensure privacy when changing into my pajamas as my paranoia peaks. Checking my reflection in the mirror afterwards, I notice a rash on the surface of my neck, a pale pallor and heavy bags forming under my eyes. My nervous energy burns more fuel than I can consume in food, and my gaunt appearance is reflective of the hunger I feel for this ordeal to be over. I slide into bed and pull the covers over my head, but the sound of my anxious heartbeat prevents me from sleeping. Alone in my fears and anxieties, I remind myself about what I'm fighting for as my thoughts drift back to my life in Cyprus before the war. Now, thank you very, very much. I'm going to ask you if you have any questions that I am available to answer to you.